Hey everybody, I'm Kyle Ingham from the Distilled Man, and today we're going to be talking about how to get over a breakup. And we're joined by a very special guest, internationally known breakup coach and writer, Laura Yates. And you can find her at laurayates.org. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me on, Carl. It's brilliant to be here.
Yeah. So the idea of a breakup coach, it's not something you come across every day. And it sounds to me like it's really more of a calling than something that you would choose. So can you talk a little bit about kind of how you got into that and then, why you're passionate about helping people getting over breakups?
Yeah, sure. So no, you are very correct in the way that I certainly didn't aspire to be a breakup coach.
When you were 10 years old, you said, I want a pony and I want to be a breakup coach.
Yes, that's all I want.
Yeah.
No, but it did come about through my own experience. So I was actually coaching before, but it was more, probably more life coaching, a little bit more general. And during that time, I went through a breakup myself. And this one was a bit different than previous breakups I'd been through because it was it affected me a lot more. It cut a lot deeper because this guy I loved a lot, and it was just it was very difficult in the sense that it was, how old was I? I was 31 when that relationship ended, and so I think there was also quite a few. When you get a bit older and there's quite a lot of expectations around relationships as well, aren't there? So definitely. We'd planned to buy the house, we planned to start the family and eventually get married and all of that stuff.
Your future was just laid out ahead of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot more, aside from the fact that I really loved him, a lot more seemed to ride on it.
Right.
But the way things transpired, it just got to a point where I ended the relationship. And it certainly wasn't through a lack of love. It was purely just the situation and how things were turning out. And I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later on. But even though I did initiate the breakup, it still didn't make me exempt from feeling that heartbreak.
Absolutely.
And all of those emotions and feeling sad and hurt and all of those things. And so the way in which I suppose part of the way I coped with it was by writing about it. So not about the actual nitty-gritty of the relationship, but more about my feelings, the emotions, my reflections. And I started writing about it, and quite a few people reached out to me, men and women, saying how much that it comforted them, how much it resonated with them. And it wasn't even as if I was writing at it from giving advice. It was just something, it was about my journey, because what I felt was that it really made me feel very, almost quite exposed. When you go through something like that, it kind of brings all of your own stuff right to the surface.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's a real journey of self-discovery, and I was discovering all of these things about myself, my own flaws, my own really coming back to my values and my standards. And I think because I did have all of that coaching experience and those tools there at my disposal, my perspectives were a little bit wider.
Yeah, I was going to say that, any other person who was just sort of blogging about their feelings might give pause once they started to get some feedback saying, wow, people really are reading this. Do I still want to share these innermost, this innermost journey that I'm going through? But it sounds like because of your coaching experience, you recognize that, this is a good thing that could help people.
Definitely. And I think one of the things I really realized is that breakups are something that does happen in everyday life. It happens to most of us. And because of that, we can get into this mindset of trivializing it, trivializing the emotions that come with that. And no, I'm not trying to make it into a bigger deal than what it actually is. But what I really recognized was that if you don't deal with those things at the time, it can then be quite harmful going into future relationships. That's when these same patterns can occur again and again.
Yeah.
And I just realized that it was an area that I think really needed some work on with other people. So I just thought, I'm going to take my existing coaching skills and I'm going to focus my work in this area, because the people that were reaching out to me, it was clearly something that they needed help with. So that's how it evolved. And also what I realized was that there's lots of advice out there, isn't there? There's loads of advice on the internet. But it's really hard to put that into practice.
Yeah,
without.
my sense is that there's a lot of sort of bad advice out there that, or sort of quote unquote common wisdom that people are
Mhm.
using. I mean, can you talk a little bit about that and what's out there that maybe people shouldn't really be listening to?
Yeah, I think the problem with a lot of the advice, I mean, there's a lot of good advice out there as well, but the issue with it is that it relies a lot on time passing,
Right.
and some of it can verge on being quite spiritual,
Ah,
right? I mean, and I would definitely consider myself quite a spiritual person actually, but I think in that moment when you're in the thick of those emotions, which are kind of up and down all the time, you really need something a little bit more practical. And I know even as a spiritually aware person, I really needed something to do. I didn't just
right.
want to wait for time to pass. You know, these ones, time is a healer and just be in this present moment, and things are meant to happen the way they're meant to happen. Of course, there's value in that, but especially from the perspective of someone who perhaps that way of thinking really isn't on their radar, they're not in tune with that, which many people aren't.
Right.
What do you do with that information?
Yeah, in the meantime, what do you do with yourself? Okay, I'm waiting for time
Exactly.
to pass, but how can I actually be
Exactly.
proactive?
Exactly that, and that's the thing. And I mean, there are lots of articles which say things like, "Oh, you know, we've done research and we found out that it takes half the time that you're with someone to get over them." And it's like, well, look, if I've been in an 8-year relationship, so I've just got to sit and wait for 4 years
Oh my
before I feel
goodness.
better. Like, what?
And
Brilliant.
does that depend on whether you have a one night stand immediately afterwards or not? It seems like that would come into
Yeah.
play. No.
Yeah, so exactly. So it's very difficult, you're right, to put anything to practical use with that. And then there's some advice which is a little bit more direct and a little bit more aggressive, like, oh well, he or she isn't worth it. You're better than that. Just move on, brush, you know, dust yourself down and move on. And that's not really very helpful either, because you're still going to be feeling all of those emotions. And if that focuses a lot on the other person, and what we really need to be doing is bringing the focus back to us.
Right, right. Really
Mm.
experiencing what we're going through.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
sense too is that, I mean, like we said, there's a lot of good advice, a lot of bad advice out there, and people just don't know what to do with themselves, how to deal with this. What are some ways that people sort of cope on their own, just
Mm.
out of necessity, that maybe aren't necessarily the healthiest way to get over a breakup?
I think the most common one is they look to other things to mask what they're feeling. So often people might turn to maybe, or not turn to, but they go out a lot and they drink a lot more alcohol than what they probably normally
Yeah.
would, and they're perhaps fueling their bodies with the wrong things, so they turn into convenience foods, simply because when you're in that frame of mind, you don't really understand how important it is to prioritize your health.
Right. It seems like
Yeah.
it feels good at the time because it really is kind of numbing you from what you're feeling.
Exactly, exactly. That's it. And I think another thing that we can do is look to another person or another relationship, or obsess about our ex, because
Right.
we come out of something and then we really crave that external validation from
Right.
people.
That you
Yeah.
actually
So
bring up a really good thought I hadn't had before, that the idea, do you ever see it where someone gets out of a relationship, and a romantic relationship, and then they sort of put all of their energy into maybe a platonic relationship in a way that's unhealthy, like maybe a best friend, like all of a sudden they're kind of obsessing and focusing. Have you ever seen that?
yeah, that does happen quite a lot, because we don't we kind of want to avoid all of those things that are going on with us sometimes, so we put all of our attention on someone else, and often that's why then these patterns can seem to occur where we go into relationship after relationship, and the same things keep coming back all the time, whether it's, you know, perhaps our own bad habits that we keep slipping back into because we haven't
Right.
actually worked on them, or we gravitate towards the types of people who actually aren't a good fit for us,
Right.
right?
Surprise, surprise. All the things that were causing us pain before are still catching
Yeah,
us up. And
exactly. And then we can just kind of think that this is just the way that things are. This is just how life happens. And we can get quite negative attitudes towards relationships, or men or women. You know, I mean, that the amount of women that say, "Oh, all men are the same. All men will treat you bad," or "All women take advantage of me." And actually, these are things that aren't true at all. But it's just we just really need to kind of face up to those things that are going on with us first, and take responsibility for ourselves instead of placing all the blame on external things or people.
We have a lot of guys watching this, and I'm just curious, is it different for, for men than it is for women in terms of getting over a breakup?
I think the main difference is that men feel that they have to be able to take everything that life throws at them with ease.
Well, yes.
Because you're a man, right?
Well,
and that's what you do. And so men find it, they either find it difficult or they don't know how to express it. Whereas women, we're very expressive. We usually have no problem in talking to our friends or anyone who will listen about our relationship problems. I mean, not all women and not all men. That's perhaps a bit of a broad generalization, but typically that's how it is.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think a lot of men would feel uncomfortable going to their friend and say, Bob, I really just need a good cry and a hug. And, a guy wouldn't say that, even though that might be exactly what he needs, whereas a woman would say that exact thing.
They would, but women, what we tend to do is we then go completely in the other direction and we overanalyze everything, and we place a lot of focus on the past and what we did wrong and what they did wrong, whereas men go then completely the other way and they just pretend that they're not feeling what they're feeling, so they push it down, and that's when then it can come back up, whether it's in a new relationship or any other time in their life where perhaps they go through a bit more emotional turmoil, and all of these things come back up again. So I think for men, really, it is just being able to express themselves in a way that they feel comfortable. Men and women do communicate differently, we do express ourselves differently, but there is a way that men can do it. And you're right, sometimes, guys, they just need to be a little bit more open with each other, and because you are going to be there to support one another if they're you're really good friends.
Right. So we've talked, a fair amount about kind of the pitfalls and things we shouldn't be doing, and I think you're starting to talk a little bit about what we can do after a breakup. But let's get into really the best way to handle a breakup. Yeah. So what are some good tips if someone's going through a breakup?
Okay, I mean, as I briefly touched on before, it's just accepting that you are going to feel bad for a bit of time. I mean, that does sound very passive, but there are things that you can do, which I'll go on to now, during that time. But just having that mental awareness, I think it almost prepares you for the fact that, this is going to be a bit of a rough ride, and I'm ready for it. And it just gives you that bit more mental preparation. I think another really important one, which is great for men because it's very practical, and men are very practically driven, is to think about your health. So particularly getting active. So doing what you can to get in some good exercise, looking at your nutrition and making sure that you're getting enough sleep or a good quality sleep. All of these sound a bit boring and very simple, but actually there's a real correlation between your physical health and your emotional health.
Well, and I could see that last one being a really positive one, just because it sort of also gets into that idea of, a bigger, better you, kind of you're actually literally taking part in the healing or the bettering of yourself. And exactly. I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, but
no, not at all. No, you absolutely. You're clued up on this, obviously. So.
Oh, I've been dumped before.
Oh no, I didn't mean that.
I know.
Awkward.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean that. But,
I know.
But yeah, I think you just become, when you're physically stronger, you become a lot more emotionally strong as well. You become a lot more emotionally resilient, and I think you just have this sense of pride that you're taking care of yourself. You're doing something very proactive that's for you, that's going to benefit your health, instead of obsessing about the other person or looking for someone else to fill that gap.
Or just feeling like you have to wait for 4 years.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you're going to wait for 4 years, at least go down the gym and do it, right? So.
Right, exactly. Pump some iron.
Yeah. Be a man. I think the next one, which we previously discussed a little bit, is just to make sure that you do keep an active social life as well, so that you are spending time around your friends that are going to be a very good, positive influence around you.
And in a way that, because we kind of hinted at this earlier, maybe making sure that you're not kind of putting all your eggs in one, or all your sort of pressure on one person to fill that gap, right?
Yes, yeah. So try and have as a broader, social network as possible, I think, and try and spend time with people who are going to encourage you to do the really positive things like that are associated more with the health and lifestyle stuff, rather than going out every night and getting drunk and going to bars, which have a blowout, of course. I mean, we all need that, I think, after a breakup. Sometimes it's that's fine, but just have that awareness that really you want to be getting out and experiencing life properly again, and surrounding yourself with really positive people who are going to be that support for you, and who you can feel you can trust enough to express how you're feeling, even if that is a little bit more of a, an unspoken thing.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask about that, because do you feel it's important that, all the folks that you're surrounding yourself with, those friends, do need to be ones that you can open up with, or do you feel like you can have a mix of, there are a few friends who I can talk to, but others I just know we're going to have some fun in a healthy way?
Definitely, because there's definitely a benefit in having all different types of friends, because sometimes you just want to forget it for a while, and so going out, hanging out with those people who are just going to allow you to have a good time and take your mind off it is really valuable as well. I mean, you don't want to be going to the extreme that you're dwelling on it all the time, and you're spending time around people and having to talk about it, because that's not particularly helpful either.
Right.
So having that diverse mix of friends, I think, is important. And I think especially when you come out of a relationship, sometimes it can really reveal what perhaps there is a bit more of a need to extend your social circle.
That you have a kind of limited circle of friends. That's interesting.
Because sometimes you can get so immersed in the relationship, especially if it was quite a long-term one, where you get so comfortable in it and you get into your routine, and then going out and making new friends isn't really something that you do. And as you get older, it's you can find it a little bit more difficult to do that, I think. So it's just putting yourself in the types of places that are going to lend themselves to helping you socialize with people.
That's a great point. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, and you kind of brought it up with your story, but how is it different for when you're sort of on the receiving end versus the initiating end of a breakup? Because at least in my experience, I've often found that breaking up with someone can be almost harder in a way, because you have that guilt. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I agree. I think when you're the one who actually initiates the breakup, you feel that guilt. You almost feel like it doesn't give you the right to feel bad, and to feel heartbroken, or because you made that decision and you've got to live with it. And I think you then feel like you're worried about expressing that to other people as well, because in case they say, well, Laura, you made that decision, so get on with it.
Right. Did you get some of that?
I didn't actually. No, I didn't. I didn't find that I received that kind of reaction. But I can see how you would feel like that. That definitely. Whereas if you're the one who's been dumped, if that happens to you, then that's when the feelings of rejection, I think, set in, and feeling like you're no longer good enough and that you don't match up to what your partner wants, and then you can get into that quite victim mentality.
Yeah, which
isn't good either.
That's obviously a huge thing, and I know for anyone who's watching right now who's just been through a breakup, it's really fresh in their mind, that idea of kind of losing their mojo and losing their confidence. What can someone do after they've been dumped and they feel like their confidence is temporarily shattered?
Yeah, I think first of all, when it's funny, isn't it? When our confidence is shattered, we tend to kick ourselves down even more.
Right. Why is that?
Oh, I don't know. So we focus more on what we feel that we lack. So what we need to do right in that moment is actually come back to all of those things that we have going for us. So what I really encourage clients to do, actually, when I'm working with people, is just to make a list of all the things that are amazing about yourself. Wow. All those things that are good. So it sounds like quite simple and like it might not have much benefit, but just the act of thinking, oh, okay, so what have I achieved, and what are the great things about me, and what do my friends love about me, and what do I bring to relationships, and what am I really good at work? It just helps to really drive home, actually, I'm not all that bad. And it just gives you a little tiny bit of a boost.
I love that.
And I think then, in terms of building confidence from there, it's not about you thinking that you've got to become a completely different person. It's just working on what's there already and then bringing that out more. And so what I really encourage people to do is to, first of all, think about their passions, their interests, their hobbies, and how they can get back to doing those. Because when you do those things, when you get back to doing what you love, it makes you happier. And when you're happier, that just kind of then unleashes that real natural inner confidence when
Right.
when you're in your best state. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it takes the pressure off you feeling like you're trying to be someone else or trying to be a better, or or worry about what the other person thought of you. And
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes when you are in a relationship, you can really lose sight of those things. You can really neglect all of those things that you're passionate about and what you're really interested in. And so I just really think that it's a good idea to start re-engaging with those, start reintroducing those into your life again, because the more that you fill your life with stuff that you enjoy, the happier you are going to feel. Even if in the first instance, when you have just come out of a breakup, you really don't feel like doing it, go and do it anyway, because it's better than sitting at home and being miserable.
That's a great point. And it seems like a lot of actual positive things come out of breakups sometimes. What are some ways that a breakup can actually be a really good thing for someone?
I think if you're looking to build your confidence and you're really committed to that, pushing yourself out of comfort zones is something else which is really important. So, and the act of doing that, it can really help you evolve and grow as a person. And that's what I really want with all the people that I work with. I just want them to grow from it. I want them to learn from it. And I want them to feel like they're becoming not necessarily a better person, but just a more evolved one. And feeling like breakups actually, because they kind of strip everything right down, you have to reassess a lot of things, and it gives you that opportunity to reassess everything else that's going on in your life as well. So maybe there's something in your job or your career that you'd really like to work on. Maybe there's financial stuff that you need to work on. It gives you the opportunity to work on your bad habits as well. So maybe now's the time that you need to quit smoking, or that you need to have a bit more of a healthier lifestyle, or you really need to set yourself some goals to get from where you are now to where you want to be in your own life.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And what you said, sort of, you didn't mention this, but it sort of brought up a thought that I had, that I feel like some people also are in relationships and end up limiting themselves and kind of often blame it on the person they're with. And then when they get out of a relationship, realize that all along they were sort of limiting themselves. And then they use this as an opportunity to kind of, like you said, look at their own shortcomings and fix those.
Oh, absolutely. And we've all got them, haven't we? And I know from my own experience, when I went through that breakup, it just seemed to bring up all of these things to the surface that I was like, right, I really need to get to work on this now.
Right. It wasn't just him. It was me. I had some part in this.
It was mostly him.
It was mostly, of course it was. You're perfect.
No. No, but yeah, and it's about taking responsibility for yourself and not putting the blame on someone else. Like, even if you were treated badly, and that's really tough to deal with, and obviously the extent of that can vary in the one relationship to another. But again, it's coming back to your values and your standards and thinking, well, okay, so I was treated badly, but instead of actually putting all of the blame on the other person, which isn't really going to benefit me or them, now I'm going to look at, well, what can I do for myself to make sure that in the future that doesn't happen again? Yeah, so the values one is a big one, because we can often let those slide, I think, to accommodate other people when we're in relationships.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah, but it's just an opportunity to reassess everything. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity to really have some fun as an individual and figure out who you are as an individual again.
I know, from my experience, because I went through a breakup around 31, 32, that it was a pretty serious relationship. And, I was broken up with, and I actually was able to see the opportunity fairly quickly. And I remember thinking within a month or so, wow, this is like a second life. Like, I was able to date, because we were very serious, we had bought a house together, and
wow, okay.
But I realized pretty quickly, I'm dating all these people that I never would have dated. I'm doing all these things. I'm getting out, and ultimately by doing that, I was actually able to meet my wife, which is a whole nother story. But it's sort of an ironic thing, not through the dating, but just me getting out and doing other activities that I never would have done, and I ended up meeting the woman that I married. So It's so
Exactly.
funny.
Oh, that's a lovely story. That's really inspiring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, in terms of when you are looking to date again, it's much more about if you're putting yourself in the places where you're more likely to meet the types of people that you're going to connect with on a much deeper level,
Right.
rather than just going out dating for the sake of dating, which definitely has a place and it's great to do that. But the more stuff that you can do that you really enjoy, that is enabling you to grow as a person, the more people that you'll be surrounding yourself with. And yeah, I mean, I think another really important point to add actually in terms of like getting over the breakup and realizing that you do have a bit of a second life is that you do have to cut off that contact with your ex as well.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because I mean, again, this was a mistake that I made, and it's keeping that connection there, that emotional connection, still keeps you very much entwined with them emotionally, even if it seems like something really insignificant. But you really need to have that space to get that clarity and get a really realistic view of how the relationship was and what you need moving forward. And you can't get that whilst you're still, messaging them, even if it's just a Facebook message or a text message or anything tiny. You need that disconnect.
I agree. I mean, especially since so much of what we do is habit and pattern. And it just
Yeah.
seems like if you don't sever that tie, you're going to still be, activating those same patterns, whatever they may be.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I know from my own mistakes really that it really prolonged the whole journey. So, and I know that had I have cut that off, or had we have cut that off a lot quicker, we'd have both moved on in a healthier way, a lot quicker, that was right for both of us. So it is hard. It's really hard to do it at first, but actually you notice very quickly how much better you start to feel once you get that headspace and that just that space to be in your own environment as an individual again. It's really important.
So, being a coach and kind of working with people one-on-one, I would imagine you see a lot of, stories or, examples of people who are able to, you're able to watch their progress going through the breakup. So is there maybe one story that comes to mind of where someone was able to kind of transform themselves after a breakup?
Yeah, there's one guy that I worked with. He's brilliant. So he's in his early to mid 20s, and when he come to me, he just come out of a breakup, and he was feeling really rejected. He was really down on himself. He was placing all of the emphasis on his ex-girlfriend, and he just really thought that he wasn't going to be happy again. But when we really broke it down, what we realized is that a lot of that insecurity was coming from the fact that he just didn't have much else going on in his life at that time, right? So, of course, he was placing everything on this.
Right.
So what we actually worked on, instead of, he'd come to me like, I really want to be able to get out dating again. But actually what we ended up working on was a lot of the other stuff. So we started working quite heavily towards his career, actually. He really wants to be a writer. So we were thinking of ways of how he could get into that industry. He hadn't long graduated. And his social circle was very slim as well. So we looked at ways that he could extend his social network, and there were all kinds of things that we did, and it really unleashed in him. He really discovered some passions and interests that he didn't know he had. He discovered that he had a real passion for kind of writing about extreme sports, and he's also dyslexic. Yeah, I know, but this guy's also dyslexic, and he's a writer and he's had work published, and he was just really taking that for granted. And I said, this is a real achievement. This, you're dyslexic and you've got this amazing work published. And so from that, it really allowed him to recognize his strengths, and it's actually now turned into a bit of a passion project for him, to help other people in that way as well.
Wow.
So it's kind of helped him find a different purpose. So that was really lovely. And by nature, he's very shy. So for him, interacting with new people was quite difficult. So we looked at ways that bit by bit we could push him out of his comfort zone to start meeting new people, but in an environment that still felt safe for him.
And not necessarily in a dating environment, right?
Not
people.
in a dating.
Right.
No, not at all. So I encouraged him to go to meetups of things that were related to the things he's interested in, so film and sport. He's doing paddleboarding now, where he's meeting people who are really into that.
Wow, he's extreme sports, getting published, paddleboard. This guy's a stud.
I know, right? I know, but it's just helping him acknowledge that. It's and it's just him. I'm there to help him along that journey, but he's doing the work, and so always reminding him of that really keeps him going, and it really keeps on him wanting to do more and more and more.
Yeah.
And this is a guy in his 20s, mid-20s. He should be having fun. He was having no fun before, and he's starting to have fun now. And he's so much more relaxed and carefree. He was very uptight. He's less stressed, and his life just feels a lot more whole.
It feels very rich. I mean, what I was going to say, what I love about this story is that, when he got out of his breakup, he sort of had this in his head that, well, the source of my happiness needs to be more dating. And what you did is you opened it up to the fact that, no, there's all this other richness that you can have in your life where you're getting happiness from all around you in all these other areas. And then he's even able to help other people, through, so this, wow.
Exactly. And when it does then come to going back into dating, if you're doing all of these things, you're going to be setting yourself up so much better to have a better dating life, because you're going to be more interesting. You're going to have more going on. If you go from one relationship to another and nothing changes and you don't have much going on in your life, well, you're quite limited in terms of what you can offer someone else.
Right.
So it's just all of these things are great because they as you say, they make your life a lot richer, but they also give you so much more to then put into another relationship.
And the irony, of course, is that, you don't feel the urgency to actually be with someone as immediately, but then, of course, you're way more attractive. So,
I mean, like how you met your wife.
Exactly.
I mean, you say you did that just through living your life, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great story. So, just to kind of wrap this up, this has been super, super helpful. I think we have a lot of guys who are watching right now, maybe some of them who are going through breakups right now. So I'm just curious, for those guys who are, fresh out of a breakup, what would you tell them right now? What words would you have for them?
I think just to know that it's okay to feel bad, to really mentally prepare yourself for that, but know that there are things like we've discussed here that you can do. So look after your health, get exercising, really come back to your values and your standards. Really use this as an opportunity to work on yourself, to iron out those bad habits, to learn, to have new experiences, to forgive as well. I think is a big one. When you hold on to all of that bitterness that we can do from past relationships, if we've been hurt, we've gone through a tough time, but the more that you really cling on to that, it's not going to help you, and you're going to then project that again into probably new relationships. So really try and do what you can to let go of that stuff. And just by doing a combination of some of these things, you really are going to be taking the good steps to heal from this in the best possible way. But just be prepared that it is going to take a while. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and suddenly feel okay, but that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's great advice. Laura, thank you again. So for people who are interested, where is the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so they can find me on my website, which is laurayates.org. I post a lot of stuff on my Facebook page that I don't sometimes post on my blog as well, and that's just laura.yates. So people can find me there. And I'm on Twitter, Laura Yates UK.
Perfect, and we'll put these links in the video so people can see them.
Brilliant.
So, Laura, thank you again for your time and all the great advice.
Oh no, thank you for having me. It's been brilliant, and I hope it helps people.
I hope so too, and I think it will. And thanks again, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you soon. Hey guys, just a reminder, if you like this interview, please hit like and leave a comment below with any thoughts and questions. Also, don't forget to grab a copy of my free PDF guide, 48-Hour Gentleman, your one weekend plan to more confidence, poise, and manly know-how. All right, well, take care, and we'll see you soon.